Hey guys, so
A teenage girl notices a pickup truck following her home one night after leaving a high school basketball game. At first she thought we must be going in the same direction, but then she began to watch the truck in her rearview mirror. When she sped up, so did he. When she passed a car, he did too. Then he turned on his high beams and left them on for quite some time, so she began to feel uneasy. She tried speeding away, but he would continue to follow her, flashing his high beams the entire drive. Finally, she pulled into her driveway, but the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped out of her car and ran into her house, telling her father to call the police. But when police arrived, the man had a gun in his hand and told them that he wasn't the one they should be arresting. He pointed inside of the girl's now parked car, and there was a man crouched behind the driver's seat with a knife. The man had slipped into the girl's car just before she left the school game, and the man in the truck saw it all happen but had no way to stop it. So he followed her car, and each time the man in the back seat reached up to stab the girl, the truck driver would flash his high beams and the killer would drop back down into the seat to avoid getting caught.
This is why you should never go to a sleepover. Back in 2013, a kid named John was sleeping over at his friend's house. John and his friend Robert were having a good time playing video games and staying up late. After a while, they decided it was time to go to sleep, so they called it a night. Robert fell asleep in his bed while John tried to fall asleep in his sleeping bag. John couldn't fall asleep because he kept on hearing these strange breathing noises. He thought it was Robert snoring, so he threw a pillow at him to wake him up. Robert woke up confused and said, "What's wrong?" John said, "Stop snoring, I can't go to sleep." As soon as John said that, he looked underneath Robert's bed and saw something terrifying. There was a man with long black hair underneath Robert's bed. The man put his finger on his lips and tried to shush John, but John started screaming in terror. And you won't believe what happens next. Like for part 2. This is why you should never go to a sleepover. Part 2. The man put his finger on his lips and tried to shush John, but John started screaming in terror. John took Robert by the hand and ran as fast as he could to get upstairs. They got to Robert's mom's room and locked the door. Robert's mom immediately woke up and asked what's wrong. That's when they all heard loud footsteps running upstairs, followed by banging on the door. The man was banging on the door, yelling, "I'm gonna kill all of you." Robert's mom was terrified. She called the police, yelling there's an intruder in the house. Everyone was crying and praying that the man would just go away, but the man just kept on banging on the door and screaming. About 2 minutes goes by when they hear police sirens coming from outside, and that's when the man banging on the door stopped. The police ran inside of the house with their guns drawn, but saw no sign of an intruder, except for the living room window being wide open.
It's called The Bride. This was a very popular one. So the story goes like there was a couple who had just gotten married, and during their wedding reception, they were having lots of fun, dancing, singing, and even playing games and contests. One of the games that they decided to play was hide and seek. The bride went up to the attic and was looking for a place to hide when she came across a giant chest. She opened the chest and climbed in, thinking nobody would ever find her in there, and that when they went up to the attic to look for her, she could pop out and scare them. Well, right after she had climbed into the chest, the top had slammed down and hit her in the head, knocking her unconscious. As she fell inside the trunk, the lid then slammed closed and locked. Everybody was looking for her, but nobody looked inside the trunk. After a while, they started searching elsewhere, searching all over the wedding venue and even all across town. Nobody knows how long she was banging on the trunk after she had come out of her unconscious state. But still, she was all the way in the attic and nobody could hear her. After a while of searching for her, all of her friends and family decided that she was gone and that they would just stop looking for her. Nobody ever knew what happened to her except for one day, a maid was looking for something in the house where the wedding venue had taken place. She went up into the attic searching for this item and thought, maybe it's in the trunk. So she opened the trunk, and to her horror, the corpse of the bride was in the trunk, withered away to only a skeleton, wearing her wedding dress.
This is why you should always lock your front doors. A kid living with both of his parents decided to watch a movie for their family weekly movie night. He then gets up to use the restroom. As he is in the restroom, he sees all of the power in the house cuts off, and then he hears 2 loud thumps. He locks the bathroom door and hears heavy objects being dragged across the hallway. The kid, freaking out, runs out of the bathroom and runs into the restroom. Once he is inside the room, he locks the door. As he locks the door, he jumps in bed and acts like he's asleep and hopes that this person who is in the house will ignore a child sleeping. He closes his eyes and hears the door creak at the same time. He squints his eyes and sees a man with no eyes dragging the bodies of both of his parents. The man dragging his parents sits his mom's dead body in a chair facing him, and then sets the dad's body on the floor facing up. It was almost like whoever was in the house who killed them wanted him to see it. He then sees the man writing something on the wall and then climbs under his bed. He laid there for hours knowing that if he moved a muscle, he would end up just like his parents. He finally built up enough courage to read the wall, and the writing on the wall said, "I know you're awake."
Here's another disturbing movie that's based on a true story. Mockingbird Don't Sing is about a girl named Katie who was locked in a closet for 12 years by her parents. And it's based on the true story of Jeannie, who's considered a modern-day feral child. From about 1 to 13, Jeannie was kept in a locked room and strapped her arms and legs down so she couldn't move. So that's basically what happens to Katie in this movie. We also see a special ed teacher who tries to use Katie to make herself famous. And Katie's mother, who's still alive but has conflicting feelings about doctors studying Katie's behavior. But things get even worse when Katie gets placed into very toxic foster homes. Mockingbird Don't Sing is disturbing, emotional, and heartbreaking. So let me know what you thought of this movie and follow for more.
True scary stories in 60 seconds or less. This story comes from a Reddit user about the night that changed her life forever. In a rare occurrence, this girl's whole family was going out for the night. Her mother was going out, her sister wasn't coming home, she had the entire house to herself. So she just decided to curl up in her bedroom, have a cozy night in, and watch a Netflix series. But not even 30 minutes in, she suddenly heard noises coming from downstairs in her kitchen. The faint sound of an unknown man laughing to himself from downstairs. She was paralyzed with fear because she remembered she left her cell phone on the downstairs counter, but she also knew if she emailed 911, eventually somebody would come. She waited for 7 agonizing minutes until police eventually come, and there is an eruption of screams and wrestling from the kitchen. When they found her and brought her downstairs, she was told to close her eyes, as she later learned in horror that the man who had been in her kitchen had her mother spread out on the floor in pieces.
This town is so haunted they had to permanently close it to the public. This is Dudleytown, Connecticut. Dudleytown, Connecticut is a haunted, abandoned town in Cornwall, Connecticut, and has a creepy history. Visitors who have explored there say that once they enter, it's otherworldly in there. Creepy. First of all, it's reportedly completely silent. You can't hear birds, animals, bugs, nothing. A researcher compared entering the heart of Dudleytown to standing inside a recording studio booth. Another common complaint from visitors is that a lot of the photos they take in Dudleytown won't develop, but as soon as they leave, their cameras will work just fine. Which makes sense, as I had a really hard time finding really any photos of Dudleytown when I was researching. The creepy legend of the town is years ago, the Dudley family fled to the US after one of their family members was taken care of after plotting against King Henry VIII. They settled in Connecticut and the bad luck followed. Residents of Dudleytown began suffering a series of devastating crop failures, and mental illness was rampant in the village. There were countless mysterious disappearances within the village, and all-around chaos overwhelmed Dudleytown. By the early 1900s, it was completely abandoned. For fans of the Conjuring films based on paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the two visited Dudleytown and outright declared that it was extremely haunted and controlled by something terrifying.
Lease a 2023 Silverado Crew Cab LT for just $299 a month for 24 months. Make waves with the Chevy Silverado strength and advanced towing technologies. You couldn't.
This is the story of the time I spent 5 hours doing makeup for free and ended up getting things stolen out of my makeup kit. One time I was contacted by a nonprofit organization asking me if I would be willing to do makeup for a mommy-daughter event. I had worked with this organization in the past and I was super excited to be able to do makeup while helping them out. The only thing is that I didn't exactly know what I was getting myself into. The organization was putting on a weekend-long retreat to give mothers and daughters a chance to bond.
Thank you, Peachy Princess. Shout out to her. These stories weren't. I didn't make these up myself. Shout out to her, and hopefully this does not get copyrighted. Bye, guys.